Welcome to Picayune Conversations. I'm Calvin. This is Lindsay, and
we're just realizing that we've, I don't think once ever introduced that way.
Nope.
Whoops.
Nope.
From now on, we will though. Courage to be imperfect.
This
right?
is how we do things. I've been using this term, baling wire and duct tape a lot lately, and that's how we do everything. It's just kind of thrown together, and we kind of cross our fingers and hope that it's helpful, and it's always fun. So I think that's part of why we get this far into a project and
don't realize,
oh yeah, we're not doing this thing we should be doing. But welcome to Picayune Conversations. This is episode, I don't even know what. It's episode something, season 1, which I don't even know if we're ever going to break this up into different seasons. But
that's up to y'all. You have to keep watching and listening to this banter. Yeah. So what are we talking about today? We're talking about the importance of intergenerational friendships.
The importance of intergenerational friendships. Where do you want to start?
Well, first, I just want to make a comment that I reread I can't remember which chapter it is, but it's near the end of your book about intergenerational relationships and competition, and my guy, it was such a good chapter. It's so good. You gotta read it. But anyway, I'm gonna bring up some of the stuff in that chapter, but I just wanted to comment that it's fire. Straight fire.
Yeah, maybe some of what's in there can serve as kind of the jumping off point. It certainly is the case, I've observed, that there seems to be a lot of hostility between generations right now. And some of that, let's say, is like mildly good-humored and whatever. We can see different generations as being different cultures, and I think there's a level of kind of good-humored joking or prodding that can be done between different cultures, just in a sense, like let's notice our differences, let's have a kind of a humorous way of observing these differences. But
you just chuckle at it. Like my mom, she'll say, "Hey, did you get my email?" And I'm like, "Was it an email or was it a text?" You know what I mean. And I'm like, "I do know what you mean," but I'm just toying with her.
Sure. So I feel like, okay, some of that can be good-natured. Some of it and I would even say a lot of it slips into, it's very hostile, and I would say very contemptuous, where we look down on people of other generations and we take their differences and kind of weaponize them and portray them and think about them as being these very negative things. And part of two things about that. I think one, that maybe prevents us from moving into intergenerational friendships. But I would also say this, that I think that's as much a product of the lack of intergenerational friendships as it is a cause of there being a lack of intergenerational friendships.
Yeah, that makes sense. That was a mouthful, but I followed.
Yeah, and I don't know if you can say it more concisely for other people, like what you're hearing.
No.
Okay. Meaning, sometimes why we're so contemptuous is of people of other generations is because we don't even know anybody of another generation, or we don't have a meaningful relationship with them.
Yeah, just a catch-22 there.
Yeah.
One of the things that stands out the most, I think it was in your book, but about the mutual learning that can happen, because it's your story about your papaw that sticks out. And part of the reason I wanted to do this today is because we just got, I think it was like 2 weeks ago, we did the Adlerian annual picnic where we got to see all of our friends. A lot of them are in different generations than us, and they're like dear, dear friends to us. So I was feeling sentimental and wanted to talk about them more.
Now you're mentioning this part from the book. I don't know if you want to unpack that a little bit for folks who maybe haven't read the book, so they have a point of contact.
Yeah, just there can be mutual learning in the sense that we can gain from the wisdom of the old, their perspectives. The first example that comes to mind is Tim Evans. I think it was back 2021 when we were helping them run the virtual conference, and we were walking out to the car, and he just kind of mentioned to me, he's like, why didn't you teach this year? I had some word salad about how I didn't feel like I was very good, and I'm no Calvin, and I just was worried I'd screw up. And he literally stopped. He stopped walking and turned to me, and he said, "What if it's less about whether you're doing a good job or bad job, but about what you can contribute?" And I was like, oh, crap. You're right. And I've never forgotten it. And that kind of wisdom, like he's been where I am now, and he has this wealth of experience that he can pass on to me. And I really love that. But also in the other direction, they can learn from us. And that's what makes me think of your papa. And the story where you were at the mall waiting for your mom and ma'am want to get out of Dillard's, which means hours. And you were like looking at cars. Why don't you tell that story? I love that story.
Yeah, so I mean, this is my grandfather, we called him Papa. Papa, he passed away, I think over 10 years ago now. He's been gone a while, but I have this very, very rich memory of him. We were sitting in this small parking lot. I was really into cars at the time. Like for Christmas, I got a subscription to Car and Driver or Motor Trend or something like that. I don't know. So I was really into cars. And so every car that would go by, he'd be like, well, what's that? And I'd say, oh, well, that's a Mitsubishi Galant or what, I don't know why that's the car that came to mind.
All right, boomer.
Yeah, seriously.
It's a joke.
That's an Audi A6 or, whatever it was. And he was so amazed that I knew all of these cars. He was like, when I was growing up, there was like a Ford and there was a Chevy. Yeah. And that's what there was. And so he was just blown away by this. And then as the day went on, he said, now that's a Ford Taurus, because he had remembered from, and then I had this opportunity, at the ripe old age of, I don't know, I was probably 10 or 11 at the time. I had this opportunity. I was like proud of my elderly grandfather. Mm-hmm. I was like, oh, he's getting it. He's learning. And I think that is a picture of a very rare interaction that happens between young and old, where the young have the opportunity to feel proud of the elderly for learning. To be a teacher it's a dignifying thing to be a teacher. And I think sometimes, certainly I think maybe a mistake that older generations make about younger generations is that they look at younger generations and they think that all that the younger generation is there to do is to learn. Right. And I think that's a big mistake. My children are 7 and 5, and it's important. I do not do this well all the time, but I think it's important for me on occasion to lean down, get on their level, and to say, I'm a learner. Like, what can you teach me about this? And the thing is that they have a lot to teach me. And I'm not talking about, I don't know, in some kind of overly sentimental perspective. Like, there's just a lot of stuff that they know about that, like, I don't know what that is.
Yeah.
I don't know, they heard some new song from a friend of theirs at school, and they're like, oh, can we listen to this song? And I'm like, I don't know what that is. So to just offer them the opportunity to be teachers, and for me, as a member of an older generation, to be a learner, I think that is I think that's an aspect of intergenerational friendship that we're really lacking culturally. Not so much you and I, because we've had the opposite experience, but
which is
special.
It's so special. It also brings to mind increased social integration. Is that the word I want to use? Because like often as you get older, you feel, and maybe I'm assuming, but you feel more and more irrelevant. And so I feel like it's a gift, not just like it has been a gift. Like since we joined the Adlerian family, I want to say the tribe, like the way that, like people that shouldn't be talking to us. If you look at our stats on paper, it's like they have no business. I have no business talking to them, but they treat us like equals. Like the encouragement that like, was such a gift. It felt like I was getting a Mercedes for Christmas or something, But I think it can also be a gift in the other way, because I think a lot of degeneration comes from loneliness. They don't have any way to contribute, and this is the way that they get to. Like we get to ask them things and build on the wisdom and perspectives that they have, and we get to give them like fresh perspectives and energy. I think that's what a lot of our older friends, they love our energy, and we're like, we have energy, and we're like 35 and dragging, but like they love it, yeah.
Well, yeah, so maybe let's say that a typical way that an older generation makes a mistake that interrupts intergenerational friendship is to be like, well, I will always be teacher, you will always be learner. But then if we think from younger generations interacting with older generations, the mistake that they often make is to think that that there is a kind of irrelevance to an older generation. And I think this is a mistake. to remember that, somebody has gone before you, and yeah, did they grow up in a wildly different world? Yeah, they did. Like I was talking with my mom one time about my grandmother, who was, she was kind of a Luddite when it came to technology. She was always like very suspicious of technology and didn't want, would say not nice things about technology. But my mom was like, Kevin, you got to remember, like, this is a woman, when she was born, like, telephones were, the telephones in the old movies where, you like, what is it? You hold this thing up to your ear and then you like stand close to the wall and talk to the mouthpiece. Like that's what she was growing up with. And now we have like high speed internet. Like the world has changed so fast, and it's jarring. But I think sometimes we get a little bit enamored with that, and we think, oh well, they don't know anything. They've got good life advice for the 1950s, but like, what do they know about what it's like to grow up in the 2020s? And to some extent that's true, and to some extent it's really not true.
Because they had problems too.
Yeah.
They have challenges, and in principle the way that they tackle them is going to be similar in some way, shape, or form. And they've had the experience of more failure and mistakes, so they have a more complete sense of who they are.
When I just even think of, one thing that they have are stories.
Yes.
And
you'll have great stories.
Wonderful stories. And I think sometimes we even underestimate the power of a story until we've heard one. And I think about like some of the stories that we've gotten to hear, about, like, I think of Frank Walton's stories about interacting with Rudolf Dreikurs. Actually, I was thinking about Tim while you were telling your story about this advice that Tim gave you. Do you remember his story about when he was presenting at a conference, and next door, I think this was, I'm like 99% sure this is Tim, but next door, Kurt Adler, Alfred Adler's son, was presenting, and there was just this raucous applause and laughter, and Tim's like running his little workshop next door. I think that there's nothing immediately meaningful about that, in the sense that I'd be like, well, I need to ask Tim about the time that happened. But in the telling and in the hearing of the story, that brought up all kinds of things for me. Just an appreciation of humor and not taking yourself too seriously, and the dangers of comparative psychological patterns. And, we could fill in the blank with a whole bunch of stuff. So I just think that, let's say that the older generations, we need to be maybe leaning in a little bit to thinking of ourselves as learners. And looking for the contributions that these younger generations can make, which are many. And let's say from a younger generation perspective, to look at older generations and to remember that, wow, they have a lot of stories. And can I just listen to the stories without immediately needing to correct them, to identify all the, socio-political problematic nature of things. And I'm just to be clear, I'm not denying that there are like socially problematic elements to stories, but to like, let's just say, can we bring that alongside an openness to listen and to learn and to just sit in story, to exist in a little bit of a narrative space for a little while before needing to impose all of our modern, very new moral sensibilities to it, which are perfectly fine to have. I'm not criticizing those, but
yeah. And just to piggyback off that, I'm just thinking, like, if we do that for them, they're going to be more likely to want to cooperate with us. They're going to be more willing to hear our new perspectives of tolerance and respect and things like that they didn't grow up with, and they can become more complete. It is scary though. Like, I'll admit, like, even though we're only 35, like, we joke all the time, like, there's all these new words happening all the time, all these phrases, and I'm just like, and I think I told you this, I saw in Walmart a vintage shirt, and it had Britney Spears on it, and I was like, ooh, cool, wait a minute.
Yeah, that's...
Oh my gosh. Like,
we're vintage now,
like,
yeah.
That was like people when we were that age wearing like a Pink Floyd t-shirt, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, we're old now. Like, we're the old ones, and it's kind of scary.
No, it's worse than Pink Floyd. The Beatles.
Oh, the Beatles. Yeah.
Yeah, it's worse than that.
Yeah. So, but like, I'm less afraid because of our intergenerational. That's a hard word. Intergenerational friendships. I'm less afraid of growing old and becoming irrelevant. It's quite a gift that they've given me. Even my older clients, like, it's kind of become sort of a niche, but like, I have a lot of clients that are my parents' age or even older. And at first, when these older clients would come to see me, I'm like, are they really going to want to take advice from like, I don't know, is that like me getting advice from a 12-year-old? And I'm like, what would be wrong with getting advice from a 12-year-old? You know, and then I have to think about it. But like that they feel genuinely, because they keep coming back, that I have something to offer them. It's changed my life in a lot of ways. So yeah, it's a privilege to grow old, and I think we need to see it that way.
I think you're just making a really beautiful point, that I think the way to feeling a sense of equal standing with other people, part of what that requires of us is to treat others as if they have equal standing with us. And I'm saying as human beings. I'm not saying all opinions or like ways of doing life are equally valid, but I'm saying as our dignity, in terms of our dignity and significance as human beings, if we treat others in this way, does that guarantee that they're going to treat us like that in return? No, but it dramatically increases the likelihood of that happening. And so, if you're young and you're worried about your place of significance in the world, let's say compared to some older folks, make friends with those people. Listen to them, ask them to tell you stories. Take joy in your time with them. And let's say you are older and you're a bit worried about getting put out to pasture. And you're worried that you might. Sorry, that's not
makes
like
me so sad.
Well, I mean, that's like the term for it.
Seeing
But
elderly people standing alone in a field.
that is a sad image. But it's like if that is a fear, and I don't think that that's an illegitimate fear, but to make friends with some younger people, learn a little bit from them,
or a lot, like we have,
or a lot, or
a lot of our dearest friends now in this realm are older than us. I love them. I love them, precisely for who they are. And I'm glad they're not my age.
Yeah.
I really am.
I think
I feel so
contribution within the context of relationship, that is a really beautiful way to gain not to gain significance, but to gain a sense of our significance. We just test. We can take this podcast or video or however you're experiencing this. We can take it as a testimonial that we are two people who have really substantially benefited from friendships with people not in our generation, and that includes younger than us too.
Yeah.
So
absolutely,
that's our encouragement to you. I hope this has been helpful and something to think about. And we'll see you next time for episode N+1, whatever this one is.
Such a dork. Now, to be even dorkier, I want us to both look and smile. That way it'll make it easier.
Okay, there we go. Now we can get a little screenshot.
Do a screenshot. It's so hard to get a screenshot.
This episode is we're just breaking the fourth wall in a way that is interesting. So
at least it's real life.
I hope you are chuckling with and at us a little bit. So have a wonderful rest of your day, and we'll see you next time. Bye now.